And so during my time on the youth commission, we did things like the graduated driver's license system that you guys kind of have today, where you're 16, 15 and a half, you do like get your permit and take those steps to get your driver's license. I was part of that and getting that put into the state. We would also go into schools and talk about drugs, things of that nature. And during that time, I really didn't know much about drugs, marijuana, any of that stuff, other than what I was getting from police officers, counselors, things of that nature. Nobody who had actually worked with the stuff or used it, I guess, is kind of what I'm saying. Graduated from CSU, I studied history, communication studies. After I graduated from CSU, I opened up a dispensary, medical dispensary, right here down the street by Lamar's Donuts. I was in business for about 3 years. Opened it up with some people I thought I could trust. Turns out they weren't very trustworthy people. Ran the business into the ground. But I'll probably never ever work in that field again with marijuana. I started doing some teaching. Worked as a paraprofessional at Fossil Ridge High School, Cougar High School in Northridge. Also did some teaching at a private school with students with disabilities. And then, lo and behold, I'm back working in a dispensary. Yes. So marijuana became medically legal 2000. So you could go see a doctor, get a prescription, or get a, what do they call that?
Red card.
A red card, a recommendation to get medical marijuana. 2012, Colorado was voted again, and it's now recreational legal. So what that means is you can go into a dispensary, a safe place, and purchase marijuana products. When you're at a dispensary, safety is our #1 priority. We want to make sure you're coming to a place where it's safe. There's not any craziness going on in the parking lot. It's always surveillanced. The police can come at a drop of a dime if there's any kind of disturbances, and we are required by law to report any kind of disturbances that happen in the dispensary. Our main thing is to keep it out of your guys' hands. It doesn't need to be in your hands. You guys are way too young. When we're working with people, we talk about testing, some of the misinformation that's out there in the news, where that's regarding vape cartridges, edibles. A lot of the times when they're talking about it in the news, it doesn't really pertain to Colorado because we have such a great system in place, and it's been in place since 2000. So we're ahead of a lot of the other states as far as testing and just how it's been unveiled to the public. So we try to dispel some of the misinformation and help people with how these products are going to affect you, dosages, and just how to use them in a safe manner. So the main ingredient in marijuana is THC, the main thing that gets you high. It has a psychoactive effect on it, kind of distorts reality, if that's what we're going to call it. Makes it feel good. Most folks, it makes them hungry. There's a lot of receptors in your brain and all over your body that the THC reacts with. There's also a type of marijuana called CBD. A lot of you guys may have not heard about it. It's more medicinal, not psychoactive, and more towards helping you in a medical kind of fashion. If you got arthritis, if you've heard of kids with that have seizures, CBD can help with that. Marijuana can help with that. There's also a new product called Delta 8. And Delta 8, as well as CBD, these products aren't regulated. There's no oversight on how they're being made, how they're being grown. It's just kind of produced, packaged, put in gas stations, sold online. There's no regulation. Anybody can buy it. What differs from the stuff that I sell and the stuff that you can buy online or in the black market is a lot of the stuff you don't know what's in it. The stuff that I sell, it's been tested, it's been regulated. There's things in place to help so the end user isn't affected. And a lot of this stuff can be delivered in flour, buds, joints, edibles, cookies, drinks, all kinds of stuff. Vape cartridges, tinctures, you put underneath your tongue, balms, you rub on your body. There's a lot of delivery methods for this stuff. Anybody got any questions so far? Want to steer it in a different way?
So, during the drug test, will CBD show up on the drug test?
I don't believe so. If the CBD maybe has a small percentage of THC, it might show up. But drug tests aren't looking for CBD. That's not how they're designed. They're designed to find THC. So you got to be 21 to try this stuff, to use it. When you come into a dispensary, we check IDs. I love checking IDs because, you just get to see somebody and how they kind of react, if they're old, if they're young. People have a tendency to feel some kind of way when you're asking them a question about their ID. Hey, what's the last 4 digits of your, street address? Or what's the last 2 digits of your birth year? People get startled. Either they have the answer or there's some kind of contention with it. But usually the people that aren't 21, I'd love to see them scramble. I'm like, you sure this is you? Are you over the age of 21? They're like, yeah. What's the last 2 digits of your birth year? Oh, 98. Well, on this ID, it says you're 6'3", but you're 5'2". Oh, yeah, it's a misprint. Well, let me get a manager out here. So the manager will come out, look at it. You sure this is you? Okay, well, we're gonna get the police here. So we'll call the police. Usually, the person will sit down. Oh, yeah, it's me. They see us call. Yeah. And then as soon as that phone's up, they're out. In their cars, they're peeling out. Don't risk it. It's not worth it, guys. You can get in trouble. If you guys get caught with marijuana, you can, they're probably gonna ask you where you got it. If it was somebody in your family, there could be potential consequences for that. If it happened at school, if you're in college, there's a lot of repercussions there too. You can get kicked out of school, lose scholarships, grants, all kinds of things like that. It's just a losing battle right now for you guys. Wait until you're of age. That's all I can say. I like to think of marijuana as like a virus at this point, when you guys at this age. Not to say that I didn't try marijuana when I was your guys' age, but I wish I had the knowledge of how it really affects you. It just kind of sabotages your success. You may think you're having fun, you see it on your phone, it's what this person's doing, it's what the rappers are doing, it's on the TV, it's on the movies. They just make it seem so good. But you guys, right now, you need to be focusing on your skills, on your mindset, so you can conquer whatever it is that you want to do. Because this time right here, you're not going to get this again, where you got support, you got teachers, you got a school full of people that want to support you and help you get to the next level. If you start engaging in this, these are the things that, minor things that are going to happen. For me, when I was using this at your guys' age, I wasn't thinking about going to college and, what my life was going to look like outside high school. I was so caught up in the moment. but you can become addicted to this. And with that, that kind of opens up the door, in my opinion, to other things. You know, marijuana isn't necessarily a gateway drug, but it runs in the same circle with a lot of drugs. And you know, it only takes somebody just saying, hey, let's just try this. Or hey, I just got this from such and such, let's try it. And the next thing you know, you're on to something else. And I'll tell a quick little story here that I didn't share with the last group, but in October I actually lost a friend who I didn't even know he, you know, like used other kind of drugs. And you know, I thought he just smoked weed, and I met him at the dispensary. And then, you know, I got a call one night, and he had passed away. And it was just so random and just out of shock. And, you know, this kind of falls on the topic that Rex is going to talk about. It was he overdosed from fentanyl. And, you know, I just like to share that because I think marijuana is not a gateway drug, but it has the tendency to open those doors and show you things that you may not be ready for, especially at this age. So again, I always say, just wait until you're of age. So that way you've got the skills and your mind has been strengthened to understand what this can do to you. And just to kind of close here, you guys are the future. And kind of how marijuana regulation kind of goes from here, and it's in your guys' hands. You will be the next ones to vote to kind of steer the conversation with marijuana and how it's used. Be a leader, don't follow the pack. It's easy to just do what everybody else is doing. You have your weapon of mass destruction, your cell phone, and just copy and just doing what everybody else is doing. Do something different, guys. Have a dream. Get it done. Continue. Just like I've said, develop your mindset and develop your skill set so that when your time comes, you can guys handle your business. If it's college, if it's whatever you go on to do to make this world a better place, start right here today. That's all I got. Any questions? No.
Now's your time. If you're at all interested about the dispensary side of things or running marijuana legalities, it's a professional industry.
The man in the back.
How many dispensaries are there in Colorado?
In Colorado, oh man, I probably say there's more dispensaries than there are Starbucks, almost. It's getting to be that way. There's several. Go out.
What was like the process of getting hired? Did you have to like
So to get hired at a dispensary, right, you just have to go through a process with the state to get your med badge. And it's just a packet of paperwork. They want to know everything about you. You've been arrested, what's your criminal history, just everything. That's pretty much it. They just want to make sure you're a good person who's going to follow the laws. Amen.
So you said you started that dispensary over by Lamar's in 2010, right?
Yes,
That
2010.
was before marijuana was legalized recreationally, right?
Yes.
How was it different from that?
So my dispensary was a medical marijuana dispensary. So you had to have a medical marijuana card recommendation. And so it differed from now. So anybody now who's over the age of 21, you can just walk right into a dispensary, buy some marijuana, and walk out. Back then, it was pretty much the same thing. You had to have a doctor's recommendation, come in, buy your weed, and you can just leave. It was very loose back then as far as the laws and consuming on site, products and bags. Did they need to be open? Did they need to be closed? It's gotten a lot more regulated now in the right ways. Back then it was, like I said, it was the wild, wild west. It was the wild, wild west of marijuana. It was pretty crazy.
Do you regret like going into that partnership? Like, since like it like didn't go so well, or did you learn from experience?
I don't have any regrets. I try to live a life with no regrets, and I like to think about life as a series of big L's and big W's and little L's and little W's. That was a little big loss for me. It was a big L and a little loss at the same time. I learned a lot as far as business, but as far as in my mind, I didn't have the skills. I blinded myself because I'd used marijuana in a way that was not beneficial to me opening up a business. And especially when you're opening up a business, you need to have business relations, you need to have a clear head, and you need to have like a goal and just things lined out. I kind of did, but it was very willy-nilly because it was, we're in such a new business, it's new times, we're doing cool things, nobody else is doing this, and then, next thing you know, taxes aren't getting paid. While I'm growing weed, taxes aren't getting paid. What ultimately happened was an undercover cop came in, and we weren't supposed to be selling at the time, and my partner had sold some marijuana to a friend of his, and that's what ultimately closed our business. Yeah. No, it's okay. Life lessons. It's good stuff. Now what happens to you is what you do about it and what you do to not create the same mistake over. That's what it's about. But it's okay to fail. You gotta fail every day, guys. If you don't fail, you're not gonna change. It's just the facts. It's okay to fail. It's how you fail and what you fail at. Any other questions?
Hey everybody, I'm Rex. So my mind's a little bit different. He's here to talk to you about the weed. I'm here to talk to you about everything else. So that's what I'm here to talk to you about. Not the truth about anything except what addiction's like. I just want you to know. That's why we're here today. This is a house of education, house of learning. We're here to educate you so you can make smarter decisions, so that when you do make mistakes, you're at least making informed mistakes. This is the time of your life when you should be making mistakes. You're growing, you're learning, you're getting ready to become adults. You're almost legally old enough to be drafted into a war and you have to kill people. Like that's how, you know what I'm saying? That's how much your life is going to change once you hit 18. Because here's the reality. At 18, you're an adult, but you're still a minor, right? So it's weird. So he talked about on one of his slides, he talked about, I just noticed that typo right there. Anyway, on one of his slides, it talked about the consequences. If you get busted with weed now, they can take your driver's license. That's an MIP, that's minor in possession. Like the mistakes that you make now and the choices that you make now should not reflect in your whole life. They should not ring into the future, okay? I'm gonna tell you a little bit about me. That's one of the oldest pictures that I have of me. That's me at 12 years old. By the time this picture was taken, I was in 7th grade. I was an everyday drinker. I smoked pot 3 or 4 times a week. I did heroin 1 or 2 times a week. At 6 years old, on my 6th birthday, I found out I was adopted. I sat in the courtroom all day with the person that I thought was my father, and at the end of the day, the judge called him up to the stand and said, Mr. Walter, that was my grandfather's name, he said, his real dad's not coming, so I award you custody until he's 18 years old. So the adoption became legal. Later on that day, on the drive home, my dad, who I found out was actually my grandfather on my mother's side, told me that my real father was just got out of prison and that he was supposed to come get me that day, but that he didn't want me, so now he was stuck with me. A couple weeks later, we would move in with, my dad would leave my mom. About a week after that court, my dad would ask me, he said, if you had to choose who you were gonna live with, your mom or your dad, your mom or me, who would it be? So I thought about it, I'm 6 years old. My mom's got all these rules, right? I gotta do all this stuff, like bathe, my room, make my bed, right? But my dad's got no rules. Takes me fishing, plays Chinese checkers with me, lets me hang out with him, yells at my brother when I don't get to watch what's going on TV. So I was like, 2 weeks later, we moved out. I literally made the decision I would realize later on in life that that was probably the most important decision I'd ever made in my life. Because 2 weeks later, we moved in with the woman who was going to be my abuser for the next 6 years. For the first from 6 to 9, I was physically and sexually abused by my stepmom. I was molested by my 2 older stepbrothers. From 6 to 12, I was severely beaten. The first time was about 2 weeks after we moved in with them. So this is about around Valentine's Day, 1980. And I don't remember what happened. I just remember it stopping. I remember hearing my younger stepbrothers screaming. And I had my face and my arms buried in the corner of the sofa, and my stepmom had me pinned down and was beating me on the head with this plastic soup ladle. We had to go to the hospital because she couldn't get the bleeding to stop. On the way to the hospital, she pulled over in a dirt lot. She looked me dead in the eye and she said, "If you ever tell anyone the things that go on in our house, I'll kill your dad." She's like, "You may escape the violence, you may escape everything, but you'll have to live the rest of your life knowing that because you couldn't keep your mouth shut, your dad's dead." So I kept my mouth shut. At 12 years old, about 6 months before this picture was taken, I was doing something with my younger stepbrother, I don't know, antagonizing him in some way, but he started screaming and running, and he ran downstairs to the basement where my dad and my stepmom were. They made arts and crafts out of wood. My dad was retired. They just went to like arts and crafts shows just to have something to do in their old age. She comes upstairs and she's got this 2x2, which is about this long and about that around square, and she cocked it like she was going to hit me with it. And I remember time froze, and I remember thinking to myself, this woman's going to kill you. It may not be today, it may not be tomorrow, but she's going to kill you. You have to fight back. You have to put a stop to it. So time snapped back on. I put my arm up. She broke my arm. She swung so hard she broke my arm. I hit her. Next thing I remember is coming to. My dad's pulling me off of her. He hits me, knocks me out. I wake up in juvenile detention center. They don't press charges. Nobody presses charges. I get released a day or two later. Go back to my dad's house, and there's an army duffel bag packed. All my stuff. Get the hell out of my house, don't ever come back. So I did, but I told him, I said, here's the thing. So out here you have CPS, Child Protective Services. Back where I'm from in New Jersey, we had this thing called DYFS, Division of Youth and Family Services. DYFS was hard. DYFS was horrible. Their solution was if you were from South Jersey and you were in an abusive family, they would take you and put you in a foster home, way on the other side of the state, away from everybody you knew, to try to give you a new life. I didn't want that. I was terrified of that. I told my dad, I said, here's the thing. I said, I'll go, but you can't let anybody know. As far as the whole system knows, I still live here. So he agreed. Within a month of being kicked out, I was in Camden, New Jersey, and me and my best friend, we discovered a drug dealer who we thought we were buying cocaine from, but it turned out we got back to his house and he hands me this little wax package that has this little tiny bit of powder in it. And I was like, hey man, I may be young, but I'm not stupid. I know there's supposed to be more powder in here than that. And he's like, what are you looking for? I said, cocaine. He's like, nah. He's like, that's heroin. I was like, what is heroin? What is that? He's like, heroin. I said, oh. I got excited. Best friend, he got scared. He was like, oh no, man. I'm like, oh, well, let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. So, here we are. 6 months later, about 5 months later. That would be, see, I was probably the first homeless person in my hometown. Glassboro, New Jersey. Small town in South New Jersey. Back in 1986, there was no homeless people. We didn't even have like homeless drunks. Like there were in the city, in Philly, and in Camden, but we didn't have them in my hometown. There was nobody. I was the first homeless person. Somehow I managed to stay in school and kind of stay out of trouble until I was 18. That's the next picture of me. That's my first mugshot at 18 years old. I think I got arrested for sleeping in a boiler room in an apartment complex because I didn't have anywhere else to live. That was right before, so throughout high school, I was mainly a drinker. I partied a lot. There was probably a year and a half where I was pretty heavy into heroin and cocaine, but I had a plan. See, I wanted to get out of New Jersey. I knew that New Jersey was my problem. If I could just get away from New Jersey, I'd be fine, right? So I had a plan. I was on track. That's me 4 years later. Okay? I'm 210 pounds. I'm a big guy. That's me at 143 pounds. I was doing about 5.5 grams of heroin a day. I was doing a half ounce of cocaine a day, all intravenously, all shooting up. I wanted to die, but I didn't have enough courage or wasn't afraid enough, I'm not sure which, to actually kill myself. My mom says I was committing suicide on the installment plan. That's me 10 years later, after when I was 32. And that's my last mugshot. That's me in 2013. See, like she said, like the thing she read to you, for 27 years I was in a cycle of addiction and homelessness and incarceration. From that mugshot I showed you when I was 143 pounds, so from there to there, I was free for a total of about 8 months over a 10-year span. I would go to jail long enough to get healthy, I'd get out, I'd be out long enough to get strung out, and I'd end up on a parole violation or catching a new case and going back. Until my last relapse, which started in about August of 2013. Some things had changed in my life that I'm not really going to go into, but I started to view my life differently. I started to realize, because I had gotten clean for 5 years. From 2006 until 2012, I was clean. I got married to the wrong woman, ended up in a bad divorce, ended up right back where I was, because that's what I knew. When things went bad in my life, I went right back to heroin. It's what I did for 27 years. Anytime here's the thing, it didn't even have to get bad. Things got too good. If I got a good job and I had a bunch of money, I'd be like, oh, I won't be sick, I can get high. Because the thing is, like with heroin and opiates, when you first start doing them, it's kind of fun. Makes you forget everything, like makes you not worry about your problems, makes you not think about the shitty things that have happened to you in your life. But then the next thing you know, you have to have it. It's not like, oh, I want to party anymore, because they determine how the easiest routes to get drugs are into the United States. You've got liquor companies who want you to be an alcoholic. They want you to buy their products every day. They want you to think that the best thing at the end of a hard day is to come home and drink some alcohol, or to light a bowl, or to do a line, or to do something that's going to take you away from thinking about the miserable existence of your life, right? Because that's where they want you to be. They don't want you happy, joyous, and free. They don't want you like with a good life, thinking about how wonderful things are. They want you dependent on their drug, okay? So, my last relapse, August 2013. By the time September came around, I was so depressed. I was so miserable that I started thinking about ending my own life. I'd finally got to that point. I was so tired. In every imaginable sense of the word, I was tired. I was tired of living. I was tired of being strung out. I was tired of going to jail, of not having any choices in my life except to get high. That was my only choice. It's what it ultimately came down to. So, on around 11 o'clock, on the night of October 28th, 2013, I had asked a friend if I could spend the night at his house. He was also my drug dealer. He said, yeah, we watched the movie. We were getting ready to watch the sequel. I don't remember what it was. But I had planned this. For weeks, I'd thought about this. Waited for the right opportunity, for a cold night when I could go to my friend and be like, hey, let me crash here for the night. I'm like, hey, man, I'm homeless. Let me take a shower. Actually, let me take a bath, bro. I want to take a bath, right? Because nobody's going to bother you in a bath. You have some time. My plan was to go up to that bath, do enough heroin to die, and let them worry about it from then on. I didn't care, right? I didn't give a shit. I just wanted to be dead. And here's the thing. I didn't want to be dead. I just didn't want to do heroin anymore. I had no idea how to stop. So for me, this was the best option. So I did. Put some music on, lit some candles, ran a bath, told them, hey, I'm gonna be a while, don't bother me. They're like, yeah, okay, no problem. Did the dope, went upstairs, did the dope. I don't remember anything. Apparently my friend came upstairs, needed to use the bathroom. It was the only bathroom in the house. She picked the lock on the bathroom door, started talking to me while she was on the toilet. I wasn't responding. She pulled the curtain back. I was blue. She called her boyfriend and the other guy who lived there. They revived me. That's about me 6-8 hours after I killed myself successfully. Something changed. We joke, we say it's like when you call the IT department or you call your internet company and they're like, hey, something's wrong with the internet. And they're like, well, did you try unplugging the modem? I think I unplugged my modem because when I woke up, I felt like such a failure. You never feel like such a failure in your life as when you wake up the morning after a failed suicide attempt. But I knew something had to change. I was on the run from the law because I had pawned a stolen bike. I turned myself in and I decided to change my life. While I was sitting in the county jail about a month after this, my best friend, who's been my best friend since 1994, the one person in my life up to this point who never once judged me for the choices that I made. He was just my friend. He didn't let me get high in his house. He didn't let me use in his house. But he never judged me for the choices that I made. He loved me for who I was. As hard as I tried to get him not to, he refused to stop loving me. About a month after this, I'm sitting in the county jail. We're sitting there talking on the phone through glass, just like in the movies. And we're laughing, and he just starts crying. I mean, like full-on sobbing, blowing snot bubbles, tears. And I'm like, bro, what's wrong? And he was like, bro, when are you going to stop jipping me out of your life? And that was what I needed to hear in that moment. So for the past 8 plus years, I have turned my life around. But there's a lot of people who, when they turn their life around, they jump immediately and they're like, oh, I want to save the world. I didn't want to do that because I know myself. I was clean for 5 years the first time. So I wanted to make sure that I really had a handle on this. Who knows who this guy is? Everybody knows Mike Tyson, right? Greatest boxer of all time. Iron Mike Tyson. Here he is today, looking a little rough. But Mike's had a great life. That's one of my favorite quotes ever. Everyone's got a plan until you get punched in the mouth. My plan was I was going to kill myself and be done with life and not have to deal with it ever again. Then life decided to punch me in the mouth one more time. Who in here can tell me what the #1 killer of adults between 18 and 45 is? Anybody? Absolutely. Absolutely. Now I'm going to show you this little video real quick. So, she knew. Surprising. So, here's the thing. Drug overdose is now the #1 killer of adults 18 to 45. Fentanyl is the #1 drug that's killing adults. But here's the thing. People aren't going out and buying fentanyl. They're not like going to their dealer and like, hey, you got some fentanyl? They're going to their dealer and like, hey, you got some heroin? You got some coke? You got some meth? You got some pills? Do you have now? I just talked to my buddy in Utah who does the same thing that I'm doing here. He said they just had busted like 4 pounds of kind bud in Salt Lake City that's laced with fentanyl powder. This is what I'm saying. You guys are in a war and you don't even know it. There's drug cartels who want nothing more than you strung out on their drugs. It's all they want. They want you miserable, selling your soul, selling your body, selling your life, giving up your families, giving up your relationship, giving up your self-esteem. They want everything about you to suck so that you'll just want to do more of their drugs.
We are now almost 2 years into the pandemic, but a new analysis shows there's a bigger public health killer here in the country.
According to the CDC, fentanyl overdoses have killed more people since 2020 than COVID-19, car accidents, and suicides. 25 News reporter Lucian Fredo has more details.
Fentanyl fatalities have nearly doubled since 2019. The CDC says the synthetic opioid is now the leading cause of death for Americans 18 to 45 years old.
That's a blown up picture of a glass vial that's about that big. That's enough fentanyl to kill you. Everybody knows what a penny is, right? That's enough fentanyl to kill you. That's enough fentanyl to kill you. Fentanyl's 50 to 100 times more potent than morphine. Fentanyl was created in the 1980s as an alternative, I think it was the 80s, as an alternative medication for people who were dying. It is literally for people who are dying. If you have cancer so bad that there's nothing they can do for you, they're like, well, dude, here's a comfortable bed and some fentanyl so you can just be in bliss until you die. That's how potent it is. The cartels figured out about, let's see, about 4 or 5 years ago that probably about 6, 7 years ago now, that it was easier to smuggle fentanyl into the country than it is raw opium. Raw opium comes in these big, gangly blocks that maybe you can smuggle a shipping container of it through customs, get it to the cartels, and now they can process it into heroin, right? So now, according to the Drug Administration, they don't even smuggle the fentanyl in. What they do is they take the powder and they turn it into like Our Lady of Guadalupe statues. And then they fill up 20 shipping containers of fentanyl statues and they send it over to Mexico because everybody wants to buy Our Lady of Guadalupe statues in Mexico. It's like their national icon. And then the cartels take it and they break it down and they just add it to the drugs. It's a losing battle. They say that already this year, 20 million fake pills have been busted at the border. So, this is a little funny video, just to kind of highlight the point. All right, we can see it again. So imagine Mike, right? For this story, Mike's a pill. And these are you and 3 of your buddies at a party. One of your other buddies is like, man, I got these rocks. You guys want one? Yeah, totally. You're feeling it, right? You're chilling. Night's going good. And then all of a sudden, the reason I show you that, it's funny, right? But it highlights a point. 4 out of every 10 pills contains a lethal dose of fentanyl. That means 1 out of every 4 of you, if you go to a party, there's a likelihood that one of you, if you each take one of the same pill, has enough in it for a lethal dose. A lethal dose it's not even really, you saw it, it's on the tip of a pencil. Okay? They say the DEA, I got a paper right over here, Miss Boston printed it out for me. In 2021, there was enough fake pills busted by the DEA and enough fentanyl to kill every US citizen in the United States 3 times. 3 times. The streets are flooded with this. There is a battle for your lives going on. See, here's the thing about addiction. Addiction is a disease that wants you dead, but will be more than happy if you're miserable. It wants everything. It tells you this lie. See, here's the thing. Especially, I'm going to talk about heroin because heroin was my drug of choice for 27 years. Until my wife, heroin was the only lover that I was ever faithful to. Because heroin had me believing this lie. It said, I will make you forget everything that has ever troubled you in exchange for everything else. Everything. 2001, I called my mom from jail. I didn't even do anything wrong. I literally was picked up hitchhiking cross country in a stolen car. We got pulled over. I got arrested because I was in a stolen car. I call my mom. This is 2001. Since 1986, my mom has been watching me throw my life away. I call. 2 weeks I'm trying to get through. Finally, she answers the phone. She's like, what do you want? My mom's never talked to me like that. I'm like, oh, hey, she's like, I start giving her this whole bullshit story about how I got arrested and this whole lie. I make it this complete lie. She's like, what do you want? I'm like, well, I was just calling to see if I can get some money, right? My mom tells me, these are the harshest words I've ever heard. My mom says, I'm gonna send you $350. She says, the reason I'm gonna send you $350 is because that's how much it would cost if I got a phone call and they said, hey, we found your son dead in a dumpster. We cremated his body. What do you want us to do with it? She said, it would cost me $350 to pay for the cremation and have you shipped back here. She's like, so in my eyes, I'm sending you the cost of your funeral. Don't call me, don't write me, don't contact me ever again. I'm like, what are you talking about? She said, by me answering the phone every time you go to jail, picking up that phone, sending you money, I'm telling you that I'm okay with your life. She's like, and the reality is I'm not. She's like, I lay awake until 2, 3 o'clock almost every morning waiting to get a phone call that they found you dead somewhere. She's like, I'm happiest in my life when you're in jail because I know you're safe. That's what drugs take from you. Everything. 22 years old, I went to prison for the first time. I got to listen to, I went to Buena Vista. It's called Buena Vista Correctional Facility. Back in the 50s and the 60s and 70s, it was a juvenile reform school. In prison, they call it gladiator school. It's where they send young kids. If you're under 25 and it's your first time in prison, you're guaranteed you're going to Buena Vista. As soon as you get there, doesn't matter what color you are, doesn't matter what you identify as, you're fighting. Probably you're fighting your own race first. And then all the other races are going to come up and test you to see what you're about. They call them heart checks. See where your heart's at. See if you're a pussy or if you're going to actually stand up for yourself. These are the things that I had to deal with at 22 years old. That wasn't part of my plan. In high school, I was a triple letterman athlete. I had a full ride to Rutgers for baseball. 2 weeks before the start of the academic year, I got clean my senior year. I was on track. I was like, man, nope, I'm getting it together. I'm getting out of this. I'm getting out of Jersey. I'm going to go play baseball. 2 weeks before the start of the academic year, I was in a fluke motorcycle accident. I spent 73 days in a coma with 27 broken bones. I spent 8.5 weeks in traction. They told me I'd never walk again. That's what I'm saying. Everybody has a plan until you get punched in the mouth. Life is going to repeatedly punch you in the mouth. You don't need to add to it by doing this shit. Look at the numbers here. This isn't a good graph. This is a good graph. Look right here. This is when the cartels got smart. Now, that light blue line is synthetic opioids, primarily fentanyl. But here's the thing. If you read the study that goes with this chart, which I don't want to subject you guys to, it tells you that it's not just fentanyl. It's drugs laced with fentanyl. The #1 killer, drug overdose killer in Colorado last year was meth. Now, here's a crazy thing. Why would they put an opiate, which is a downer, in meth? Wouldn't it counteract it? No, it doesn't. Because here's a little thing about meth, and the cartels know this. Methamphetamines are the one drug that when you do them, no matter how many other drugs you do, your body ignores them. Or your body ignores the meth and will fight off the other drugs so that you feel the meth more. So cartels are now putting fentanyl and methamphetamine to get you more addicted. This is what I'm saying. You're in war and you don't even know it. You're on the front lines, yeah.
I was just wondering, are you able to tell, I'm not saying that I'm doing that, but if you're able to tell, are you able to tell before you take a drug if it's laced?
Okay, so that's where I was going. That's a great question. So Miss Boschman over here, she told you where to find her.
Yeah.
There's 2 laws in the United States that protect people. One of them is for fentanyl test strips. Doesn't matter how old you are. You can be 5 years old. You get busted with a fentanyl test strip. They're like, oh yeah, cool, you're allowed to have that. Same way with, does anybody know what naloxone is, or Narcan? Okay, so for those of you who don't, it is a drug that was designed to counteract the effects of opiate overdose. So people who are overdosing on heroin, you can either give them an injection or a squirt up the nose. And what it does is, so you have all these opiate molecules running around your body, it puts a case around the opiate molecules and time releases it so that it disperses in your system, you're no longer high. You immediately go into what's called precipitated withdrawals. So if you're a heroin addict and you overdose and they hit you with it, you're immediately dope sick. That's a whole other story. It's a life-saving thing. There's a lot of organizations that will not talk about Narcan and naloxone because they say it enables people to use drugs. They're like, oh, if you tell them about this, then you're telling them it's okay to do drugs. The only thing that naloxone enables is breathing. Always remember that. There's nothing wrong with it. If you think somebody's overdosing on heroin or on opiate, you can continuously inject them with Narcan and nothing will happen unless they're overdosing on opiates. It cannot harm you in any way. There's no need to be afraid of it. back to your question. There are fentanyl test strips. They are readily available in Fort Collins. Miss Boschman, if she doesn't know where to get them, she can get them. She can contact me. I do. On the corner of Remington and Magnolia, there's the Northern Colorado Health Network. If you go down the ramp to the bottom door and go in or ring the doorbell 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, excluding federal holidays, they will give you test strips and naloxone overdose kits. You can have them. It's legal to have them. We give them to our children. We have kids between the ages of 16 and 25, 5 of them, 4 girls, 1 boy. They all have fentanyl test strips. All. They all have overdose kits, because you may be in a situation where you never need to use it. And you're standing at a party, you're the weirdo standing at a party drinking soda, and you hear somebody talking about, like, hey man, I got these Roxys, blah, blah, blah. You literally can take your fingernail and scrape off enough of that pill. It'll have enough residue of the fentanyl in it that you can put it in that test kit and it'll tell you. Then, at least from that point on, if you still want to get fucked up, you're making an informed decision. You know the chances, you know the risk. Because without that, you don't. Show you some more slides here. Fake morphine pills. They look real as shit. If you Google them, the M with the numbers, it'll come up looking just like that. Fake Percocet. Fake Xanny bars. These are all over. And you guys are on the front lines. I know. I was a high school drug dealer. I was a drug dealer who sold drugs to high schoolers. When I moved to Boulder in 1994, I followed the Grateful Dead out here. When I moved to Boulder in 1994, all of my friends were in the 16 to 20-year-old age bracket. I thought I had moved to heaven. I became the most popular drug dealer at Boulder High. And here's the thing about drug dealers. We're not honest. We're liars. We just want to make money. Because most of us have another habit that we're trying to support. So whatever it is we're trying to sell, that's our moneymaker. It's not what we're doing. We don't do our own supply. It's stupid. That's a stupid drug dealer. So, let's say, I'm just gonna pick on somebody, this guy here, right? Let's say his older brother's like, hey man, what's up, dude? I got these pills. Like, oh, where'd you get them from? Oh, I got them from dude at fucking CSU campus, blah, blah, blah. No, he's cool, bro. He's cool. Yeah, we've partied before, okay? So now, your brother's giving you that information. That's good information to you because you trust your brother, right? Your brother don't know. The guy at CSU, he probably got them from some dude in Denver at the church or at some other club or some other place. Nobody knows. If you ain't going to King Soopers or Walgreens and getting that from your pharmacist, you don't know. It's a lie. Consider it tainted. Seriously. And I'm not trying to scare you. Here's the reality. I don't care what you do. I don't want you to mess your lives up, but I have no investment in you. I just want you to make smart, informed choices. Like I said, you're at a time in your life you're supposed to be making mistakes. Date the wrong people, cut class. Do I really want to eat all this junk food? You know what I mean? Even worse things like that, you know? But you shouldn't be making mistakes now that are going to ring into eternity. You shouldn't be making life-altering choices right now. Everybody's going to party. You guys probably already party. Some of you are probably high right now. Some of you probably got high during break. That's okay. That's your choice. It's your life to live. You can do whatever you want. Me and Lucio, we just want you to make smart choices. That's all. Because we didn't have this shit. When they came to our schools, it was DARE. You guys remember DARE? You know about DARE? Like, dude, they came to our school and they had like this whole case. They would spray this spray that smelled like weed, and they'd be like, if you smell this, tell your teachers because your parents are criminals. Like, it was like all scare, like you smoke pot, you're gonna overdose. Like, you know what I mean? It was stupid. So far, it's 2021. 2021, more fake pills were busted than the last 2 years combined. So, I want you guys to understand how potent, how powerful fentanyl is.
Shocking body cam video released tonight by the San Diego Sheriff's Department. It shows a deputy on the brink of death after being exposed to fentanyl. The deputy saved by his partner who was equipped with a life-saving medicine known as Narcan. I do want to warn you, what you're about to see is difficult to watch.
You're on
Dramatic body cam video capturing the moment Corporal Scott Crane of the San Diego County Sheriff's Department is promising his trainee, Deputy David Five Eye, he's not going to let him die after Five Eye was exposed to fentanyl while processing drugs at the scene of an arrest in early July. That discovery caught on Five Eye's own body cam just minutes earlier.
Yeah, it's the powder.
Cocaine or fentanyl. It tested positive for fentanyl.
The synthetic opioid is 50 times more potent than heroin, and exposure to just a few small grains can have deadly consequences. In Five Eye's case, the exposure and his reaction to it was almost instant.
A couple seconds later, he took some steps back and he collapsed. I ran over him and I grabbed him and he was ODing.
Corporal Crane was equipped with a nasal spray Narcan, a prescription medicine that rapidly reverses the effects of an overdose. Still, Five Eye needed more. Here he is, in his own words, still emotional.
My lungs just locked up. I couldn't even breathe. I was trying to gasp for breath, but I couldn't breathe at all.
Pay attention to him, because he's not foaming at the mouth, he's not seizing, nothing like the movies. This is what a real overdose looks like.
Don't be sorry. Please not be sorry. I got you, okay? I'm not going to let you die.
Deputy Five Eye taken by ambulance, overdosing again and again on his way to the hospital. But without his partner and that Narcan, he knows he would have been just another statistic in this country's deadly drug overdose epidemic.
I'm Deputy David Five Eye, and I almost died of fentanyl overdose.
Over the last year, fentanyl deaths in California have spiked.
Accidental skin exposure. That's how deadly it is. So, we talked a little bit about, everybody has a plan. This is Katie.
This is the new young face of fentanyl addiction. Before and after. 22-year-old Katie Mater, forehead and chin clawed open by her own fingernails because the use of fentanyl makes her skin crawl. I spot her on the strip, Surrey's infamous drug hangout, and ask if she'll talk to me. She puts cover up on her raw skin.
So I'm literally just doing my mascara and I'm good to go.
Katie settles in to tell her story.
Perfect.
How she ended up living on the street 3 months ago, addicted to fentanyl.
Well, I've been using, it's actually funny, well not funny, it's terrible. I have a really addictive personality. I've always been like addicted to something, whether it was shopping or Facebook or whatever. And I did an oxy, I got addicted right away. And then I found a regular dealer and I started picking up all the time. I remember the day the fentanyl came out and my dealer said, I've got these new pills, they're fake oxys. He didn't tell me they were fentanyl because nobody knew what fentanyl was yet. He just said they're 100 times stronger and they're only $5 more. And I was just like, okay, because I was getting a pretty high tolerance at this point.
Oxys, OxyContin led to fake 80s, fentanyl posing as OxyContin. Immediately, Katie wanted nothing else.
I could buy one of these fake 80s, put them into 4 lines, and 2 lines would last me a full day. That's how strong it was. And if I took a full pill, I would eat.
Katie says she's overdosed 11 times, most recently a few days ago. Brought back by paramedics or friends on the strip who have naloxone, the powerful opioid antidote.
Every time I eat dope, I know I'm taking a risk. I know that I might die, but it doesn't matter how many times I OD, I still use the next day because the withdrawals are so bad.
Katie has been in the news before. She and her sister attacked by a Rottweiler cross back in December. Katie was badly hurt and spent time in hospital. She says that cemented her addiction to fentanyl. As she talks, blood starts to seep through her makeup.
Katie, you're 22. Why would you risk it?
Well, at first it was just fun, right? It was just for fun. It was just a party drug that, and there's been some things that I've gone through and it helped with a lot of pain. And especially after, that dog attack, I just couldn't stop,
I ask Katie if she worries about herself and her future.
Sometimes, I don't know. I just like to take things one day at a time. I don't kind of just go with it and hopefully, hope for the best.
For now, the best Katie can hope for is to wake up from her next fix of fentanyl. Eric Rankin, CBC News, Surrey.
So like she said, it was just fun, right? Just party. It's kind of the story of everybody. That's what, when I was living in Boulder, I saw all those college kids. Nobody ever came up to me and was like, hey man, I think I want to throw my whole life away and get strung out of heroin. You got any? No, absolutely not what happened. What happened was I started off selling them weed. And then the question, hey, you guys know anybody that does any coke? Oh yeah, buddy does coke and weed. Oh yeah, just give my number. So then they end up doing a little bit of coke. And it's like, oh man, I party all night and I can't go to class in the morning. I said, well, I got something that'll bring you down from the coke. See, that's how it works. It's progression. Like he talked about, like weed's not a gateway drug. Like nobody smokes weed. It's like, oh man, I want to go do some heroin. Like, dude, that sounds like the best idea ever. Like from this high, I'm gonna be so much. No, that's not how it works. Like I talked about, your drug dealer's not an honest person. He's probably selling that drug to do another drug, right? But the progression is, if he can get you strung out, then you're a guaranteed customer. You're a guaranteed revenue stream. It's just like Facebook, just like Instagram, just like Snapchat. You guys are fighting a battle that you can't win. You don't even know you're fighting it. People pick this up and they're like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna see what's up. The reality is, everyone in this room, if you have one of these, you're an addict. If you don't believe me, go put it in your locker and leave it there for a week. And keep track about how much you think about it, how much you fiend over it, how much you want to check your notifications just to see. Now imagine putting on top of that a chemical dependency. When your whole life, we host a podcast. We just had a guest on last week who talked about, she was like, when she was in high school, she was on track. Like her goal, by the time she was a sophomore in high school, her plan was to be a high-powered criminal defense attorney. And that's what she was on track for until she got to college. She got to college, she got introduced to coke. Next thing you know, she's gone from her home in Georgia, living in Southern California, strung out on heroin. Like she talks about the progression, like when her life went off of track, it was because she started to determine where she was going to go socially based upon whether there was going to be cocaine there or not. This is how insidious the addiction is. It's an addiction that once you dead, will be more than happy if you're miserable. So you guys heard this chiming going on? Every time you've heard that bell, someone in this country dies of an overdose. 13 people have died by the time that this is done. It's got one more to go. Just in the time that him and I have been talking, 13 people have accidentally overdosed. Because here's the thing, I've overdosed a bunch. Never once, except for the last time, was it on purpose. Ever. I woke up in the hospital, talking about where's my stuff, and they're like, dude, you gotta stay. You have to stay. 2 IVs in me because I'm so dehydrated and so malnutrition. Because you don't think about anything but the drug. That's the reality. That's what we want you to understand is, yeah, you might die. There's a distinct possibility. Probability though, you're not going. If you continue to do the drugs, you're gonna end up strung out.
It's been a long day without you, my friend, and I'll tell you all about it when I see you again. We've come a long way from where we began. Oh, I'll tell you all about it when I see you again. When I see you again. How can we not talk about family when family's all that we got? Everything I went through, you were standing there by my side. And now you're gonna be with me for the last ride. Let the light guide your way. Yeah. Hold every memory as it goes.
Like I said, I'm not here to scare you. Some of you may find yourself in that place where you are strung out, where you are addicted. You might find a few years from now, a few months from now, that you need help. There are places to go. Talk to Ms. Boschman. There are meetings, there are recovery programs. Talk to your friends. If you get to the point where your life is so overwhelming that you need to check out from it for any extended period of time, now don't get me wrong. I like to check out of life from time to time. You know what I mean? Like, I don't do drugs anymore. I don't get high anymore. But I do other things to take myself out of my life. But when those choices have life-altering and lifetime-ringing ramifications, maybe before you make that choice, you can talk to somebody else. Talk to a friend, talk to your parent, talk to a brother, a sibling, talk to a teacher, talk to anybody. Try to find alternatives other than just checking out of your life. Because what's going to happen is you're going to wake up someday and you're going to realize that it's not what you want anymore and you're not going to know what to do. But there is hope. There is a way out. And I found it. Others have found it. And here's leaving on a little message of hope.
First things first, I'ma say all the words inside my head. I'm fired up and tired of the way that things have been. Just stealing down with a quick fuse. I was out of time, wanna let loose. Things second, don't you tell me what you think that I can be. I'm the one at the sail, I'm the priest on the sea. Take a number, I was lightning before the thunder. Whip, run me like a racehorse, pull me like a ripcord. Break me down and build me up, I wanna be the slip. Word upon your lip, let you rip. Take me down and build me up, whatever it takes. You made me up, I believe it, whatever it takes. You break me down and build me up, believe it, whatever it takes. Cause I love the adrenaline in my veins, whatever it takes. You made me up, I believe it, whatever it takes.
That's all I got, guys. You got any questions? No? Oh.
So you talked a little bit about being homeless for a large part of your life.
Yep.
How did you get by?
Well, I sold a lot of drugs. I mean, that's not really true. So, like, the pictures that I showed you when I weighed 143 pounds, I was selling a lot of coke and a lot of heroin. I was working for the Mexican cartel. I was actually working for the Mexican mafia in the United States, who was working for the cartel. I was busted in 1996. I had 27 federal indictments and a RICO Act. The RICO Act is an organized crime bill that they take the maximum sentence they can give you for each charge and they add them all together. So at 22 years old, I was looking at 986 years in prison. Fortunately, the district attorney didn't do their job very well and I beat it on a technicality, but I ended up going to prison for possession. After that 10 years of in and out, I got out and I stopped using, but my life didn't really change. I was still homeless. I don't know, I guess I just relied a lot on, you know, if you ever find yourself in that situation, there's a lot of organizations that, you know, I was fortunate, I was in Boulder. Boulder, Colorado is probably the best place to be homeless, at least where it gets cold. I lived outside a lot. I had places that I knew were safe to camp. I lived my life out of a backpack. I had a bedroll that usually strapped to the top of it. And the reason that I chose to be homeless, and I say chose to be homeless, is because I wasn't 100% homeless all the time, but as soon as I relapsed, and I'm not talking about like smoking pot or drinking beer or something like that, but like when I got back into IV, because like when I IV used, I started shooting up and that's how I ended. And so for me, I don't want to go to jail when I'm using, so being homeless gives you the comfort of being invisible. People don't pay attention to homeless people unless it's to give them money or to tell them, you know, get out of their way or whatever, but people don't really pay attention to homeless people. So when I was strung out and in that life, it was just easier. And I know that sounds hard, but like when your whole main focus is just getting that drug, you don't care about jobs, leases, apartments, bills, because that's money that's taking away from your drug addiction, right? Like, I have a tattoo over my tracks. It's Latin. It says, "Itego Arcana Dei." It means I conceal the secrets of God. Because I thought getting high was the closest to God I was ever going to come, especially for the piece of shit life that I lived, right? I almost got a tattoo of a safe there, a little metal safe, because that's where all my money went my whole life. Like, it's not, and it sucks because people like me who are trying to educate you on how bad drugs suck have to compete with social media, news media, television, movies that glorify it. Movies and entertainment will tell you that if you get high, it makes you cooler. If you drink, it makes you more attractive, makes you more fun, makes you funner to be around. When the reality is, you're being sold a lie, because alcohol is probably the worst drug there is for you. It does more damage to your body. It affects you in ways that other drugs don't. You know, like you young ladies, you're born with all the eggs you're ever gonna have. Every child that you have the potential to ever have, you were born with. The more you drink, the more you fuck them babies up. Now, lasting effects long in the lifetime. The last class asked the question, are there long-term effects of smoking pot? The Substance Abuse and Mental Health Institute of Australia has done a 25-year study that ended about 5 years ago. And they tracked kids that they knew were doing methamphetamines and smoking pot in high school, tracked them for 25 years, and noticed that they have increased rates of infertility in men and women, birth defects in babies, and these are people that stopped using after high school and agreed to be part of these studies. So this is what we're talking about making informed choices. Because right now, you feel immortal. You're not thinking about death. You're not thinking about your own mortality or, oh my God, like if I party tonight, is it gonna fuck my kid up when I'm 35? Like, you're not thinking about that. So we're trying to help you think about that. Not that I want to ruin your life or make things bad. We just want you to make smart choices. That's it.
Do you think it'd be beneficial to, like, even if you're not planning on ever using, to carry those fentanyl overdose
Absolutely.
kits?
Especially if you know or could potentially be in a situation where you're around other people who are using them. You know what I mean? Like, that's why we give them to our kids. We're not like, hey, go do some coke. It's not like that. It's like, hey, you're probably going to be at a show or at a party where there's going to be people doing coke or snorting lines or doing this. Yeah.
So what are, like, the symptoms of a fentanyl overdose? Like,
That's a great question. So, I've been around a lot of drug overdoses in my life. I've seen a lot of people overdose. Anybody here ever seen Pulp Fiction? Okay, it's never like that. When you're foaming at the mouth and like flopping and seizing. Now, it can happen like that. It can. It does. But that's not common. Usually what happens is all of a sudden you look over and you're like, hey, are they breathing? Like, it's because here's the thing, opiates especially, they restrict your respiratory ability. Like that cop said, his lungs seized up. Like he wasn't flopping, he wasn't seizing, he wasn't foaming at the mouth, he just fell. And basically like he just passed out, like he fainted. So, blue lips are a big indicator that you're not getting enough oxygen. Slurred speech, slowed motor skills, no response. Like, hey, like what's up? And they're moving, but they're not responding. Like,
So just to interject here, I worked with a student this year who suffered from a fentanyl overdose, got help, but they had described it as, total loss of motor control, just stumbling everywhere, was not conscious of what was going on, fell downstairs, things like that, and couldn't breathe well. Luckily, there were parents that got them the help they needed, but it can look very similar to alcohol sometimes. Alcohol poisoning.
Yep. Vomiting, that could be a big indicator. Opiates will make you nauseous, make you want to vomit. So here's another thing that I talked to the last class about, and I want you guys to be aware of this. If you go to a party, if you go to your pot dealer and he's like, hey, what's up, man? I got some Roxy's, right? I got some 30s. You're like, oh yeah, I called them a party. And you bring them and you give one to each one of them, and one of them dies, you're now responsible according to Colorado law. Boulder County is the first one that's prosecuting. It is now called involuntary manslaughter. So if you or your dealer or somebody you know provides pills to somebody and they overdose, or provide drugs and they overdose and it has fentanyl in it, you are now liable. It's just like if you own a bar, you serve somebody that you know is drunk and they leave and kill somebody, you're responsible. Keep that in mind.
I also just wanted to add that there's such thing as a good Samaritan. So if you find someone who is overdosing on opioids, if you call the cops, there's no way you're going to get in trouble or the person OD.
Even if you're at the party, like let's say it's your house, somebody's falling out, you're like, oh my God, what do I do? Call fucking 911. Sorry for cursing. I can't stress that enough. They will not charge you. They may come and confiscate everything. You know what I'm saying? And they're definitely going to give you a stern talking to, and you're going to have to deal with some repercussions, but they will not legally charge you for the drugs that are found in the house if you call because somebody needs help. So
I understand that, drug, you being addicted, was something that was really powerful, and that, you just couldn't get one of those. But after losing certain aspects of your life, what allowed you to keep doing it, even though you saw kind of your life falling apart, your mom telling you certain things and stuff like that?
So for myself, see, here's the thing about drugs, okay? So pot too. You're not only growing physically, psychologically, but you're also growing emotionally. You're developing emotionally. So when you start doing drugs regularly or drinking regularly, it stunts your emotional growth. So for myself, I started really partying, I call it partying. I really started abusing drugs at 12, 13 years old. So I stopped growing. It's like I hit pause. I physically grew, you know what I mean? I still was going to school and getting smarter. I'm still learning, experiencing through life, but emotionally I wasn't developing anymore. So what happens is the more I went in life, the more trauma built onto what was already there. See, and here's the thing. Being an addict is traumatic. Going to prison is traumatic. Being beaten, traumatic. When I was 13 years old, I was beaten and left for dead and raped by 2 middle-aged men. These are things that I didn't want to deal with in my life, okay? So I'd go to jail, I'd get clean, I'd come out, and I wasn't thinking like, man, like my life's kind of on track right now. I should just not do drugs. And you don't think like that. That's not how you think when you're in addiction. When you're in addiction, you have a little voice in the back of your head that is going to lie to you. And so here's, I joke about this all the time. If anybody else would ever talk to me the way that I talk to myself, the negative things that I say to myself, I would be in prison for murder. I would kill somebody for talking to me the way I talk to myself. But when we're low, we're depressed, and we're feeling bad, we don't stop to think like, oh man, should I really be thinking about this? Should I really be talking to myself this way? No, you feed into it. So until after my failed suicide attempt, when I was really willing to sit and look and deal with the trauma that had happened in my life and really examine it and not run from the pain anymore. See, that's my big thing now. Don't run from pain. Don't be afraid of pain. Pain is inevitable. Suffering is optional. Life is going to give you all the pain that you ever need. You don't need to add to it by doing drugs and wasting your life that way. So thanks for being here, guys.